I just want to look at what I'm going to have to call the spiritual scene, which is almost enough to see the problem. It's a form of groupthink, isn't it? The whole spiritual field in society, all the discussion is nothing but groupthink, isn't it? And we're so conditioned that we all assume we've got to go out and do something for people, help people, service, right? So we're all trying to compete to help people spiritually. And who said we're here to help people? A spiritual process needs to unfold in freedom. If we impose our own ideas of where it's going, of what it's doing, then that's the ego. And the ego is only going to create destruction, problems, karma. Why do you assume you're going to do anything to it? Why do we assume? Because otherwise we can't see the value in it. But the value is us waking up, understanding ourselves. It's the growth of our own understanding that is important, our understanding of ourselves and our lives. Through that understanding, consciousness can heal itself. And therefore, but it needs to do that in freedom, and you can't know where it's going to go to, can you? From that point of view, the whole spiritual nonsense of humanity is all bullshit. I don't know how many people are just allowing the process to happen naturally. Everyone's trying to control it. This discussion on kundalini, why even call it something? The only truth of it is the perception of it. Why call it something? It needs to operate in freedom, obviously. We shouldn't interfere with it, obviously. So what else is there to do but observe and understand it? Why would we try and construct knowledge about it? I mean, historically we understand, okay? But now, in this day and age, when we need to be free spiritual people, why do we construct knowledge called kundalini and understand ourselves? It's to measure ourselves. That's one reason, to measure ourselves. So we can compare ourselves to others, so we can see how far we can get. That's all ego. Another reason is because we want to manipulate the process. We want to channel it. We want to see what we can do. We want to do stuff with it, but that's all interference. Also, we think that understanding ourselves and understanding the non-ordinary processes that take place is knowing it, interpreting it into words. But knowledge is just representation of something beyond words, isn't it? Something perceived, otherwise it's not knowledge. So perception is the original, knowledge is a copy, and the knowledge is a socially conditioned interpretation of the perception, and therefore is untrue. And another reason we want knowledge is because it's a means of communication socially. We want it in words, we want it in concepts so we can communicate it socially, and the ego wants to flog itself through that communication. So, what value has any of our spiritual activities on earth got? I mean, obviously, any practices, any beliefs, anything like that that you impose on consciousness and on the free workings of a spiritual process is interference. And even believing stuff interferes with your organism and every layer of your consciousness. Because if you believe the wrong thing, It's shaping the way you see reality, and it's affecting reality, because the way you see reality affects reality. And all knowledge is untrue. What can knowledge know when it's only a representation of something actually perceived? Perception sees and understands. That's all that's needed. If you indulge in knowledge, you condition your brain with knowledge. But if you just perceive what is as it is, you condition and change and transform your brain directly through perception. And perception is totally incapable of error, because it just shows what is as it is. It doesn't say what is. I'm not saying, when I should say awareness rather than perception, because perception can, I mean, awareness can be distorted as perception by concepts, by interpretations, by judgments. But awareness is beyond all error, because it doesn't say anything. It can't ever be wrong. Perception, can it? Awareness, can it? It doesn't tell you what is, does it? Now, what you're aware of could be some kind of illusion, but that's not what we're saying. We're saying awareness itself is incapable of error. So if it shows an illusion, it shows the truth that there is this illusion. It doesn't tell you it's an illusion. You've got to see and understand it, yeah? Awareness is not biased. It doesn't judge. And all knowledge has its origins in perception, in awareness. So, what value has knowledge in the awareness, the observation and understanding and transformation of a life? None. It can only interfere. Do you know what? On some level, on this intellectual level, I suppose you call it, I seem to be free of all this, but I've got other anchors and issues in life, and I'm not claiming to be in any way beyond anybody else. But what I do think is that everyone is in a complete delusion about, they have to construct an idea of a spiritual future of where they're going. Why? What is it in us that demands that? It's the ego and the brain. You feel insecure if you don't know where you're going. The ego doesn't know where to direct its activities, but remember, all its activities are destructive, are not helpful to you. I don't know how many people understand this, so I don't know what the value of saying this is. I'm not trying to tell people stuff. It's just boiling inside of me, and I need to communicate this stuff. I don't know how many people, if anybody, is on the same page. I do meet some people who are incredibly humble, but there's a toxic side to the socially conditioned forms of humility. It stops you having the confidence to look and see and understand for yourself. So they end up powerless and in inertia. The people that are playing with ideas of boosting their spiritual ideas of boosting their energy through illusion, through stimulation. There's immature parts of us that get very stimulated by thinking about, looking at, but what is it all doing, all this stimulation? Is it based on truth? No. It's a bit like drinking coffee or alcohol or something. It's a stimulant or a way of changing your feelings. And that might give you more energy to carry on your intrinsically unsatisfactory and meaningless social activities, because unless you're seeing and observing and understanding what is, I don't want to call it meditation, unless you're doing that, you're wasting your life. And everything spiritual people are doing seems to be wasting their lives. Is it that just that of course it is, isn't it? Generally, it's just that we don't know what to do. But it's not about what to do, it's about seeing what is. If you think it's about what to do, you're thinking, well, what am I meant to be doing? Before I can't watch myself unless I know what I'm doing. And then you think of something to do and you pose that on the natural self and therefore mask its natural movements, its natural behaviors. We've got to start with freedom. That's what Krishnamurti said. He always said, he said, freedom is at the beginning. And it's obviously true because if you impose on the free workings of your mind and your heart and your body, a formula, a structure, a direction, you're distorting the natural movements. Can you see that? I just can't bear. I I'm waiting for you, to be quite honest, to catch up with this. I'm so immiserated by the way the world is. I can't bear this social existence at all. I think it's all meaningless, absurd bullshit. And I'm waiting for someone to grasp the need to be absolutely free. Are you worried that you're going to be explosive and make mistakes? Better see them then. Better understand whether that's going on in freedom. If you're aware, if you're concerned about it, observation will be concerned about it. So you can. How is control any better than just watching yourself in freedom? So be free. That's. I think we should say be free instead of meditate, and then watch yourself in that freedom because otherwise, do you not see there's a duality, a false split in reality between the meditator, thing trying to meditate in the brain, and the awareness? That's duality. That's contradiction. So what do you want? Do you want to do the ego meditation, or do you want to be free of that and be free to see and to watch yourself in freedom? If you're instinctually free, and if you're free of self-regulation and control in the head, obviously you've got a lot more energy. What is that energy? It's spiritual energy. It's the energy of consciousness itself. You feel better when you're free. There's a slight bliss in just being free in the instinctual sense. Now, I know that's not true freedom because our instincts are deranged, perverted, distorted by our social conditioning, by our practice, by our knowledge. So there's trauma, but you see and observe and understand that trauma and it transforms. I'm not teaching anything, by the way. I'm just explaining why it works and why I think you're crazy for squandering your freedom to be a supplicant to someone else's knowledge or to your own knowledge. It's because we need to figure this out. We need to wake up to this. And I really want people to wake up to this. That's all I want. So I guess that's one reason I'm communicating because I'm desperate for things to change and it's exploding in me. I wonder if anybody feels the same or understands what I'm talking about. I don't blame you if you don't. I'd say just one more time, I'm a bit of a outsider on the margins of society with absolutely no social status, no desire. I wouldn't work in society or through society. I'm a natural creature. That's what I am. I want to. I want to live with Mother Nature and become a natural human being. I don't want to fucking help people. I think it does help people if people can become natural and free, but freedom, if you know what you're going to do with it, it's not freedom. And if you're trying to flog it in some way and try and profit off it in some way, then it's ego and it's social. You know, it's simple. It's so obvious. You can't deny this stuff. Why? I think we're in denial about this stuff because it takes away what we want. But want means lack. Why do you want all the time? Why do you want to want? Want means lack. Desire means lack. We got everything we need in us, but it needs freedom and power, energy. You don't have energy if you're regulating yourself or being controlled by knowledge or referring everything to fucking knowledge. There's no point. You got eyes. Anyway, I better shut up so I could go on forever.